My next guest is a journalist, speaker, career agility guide, and founder of Raise to Rise. She's on a mission to help brilliant professional women unapologetically make bold career moves. Please welcome Sara McElroy. Welcome to the Powerful Female Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Patricia Bourgeois, certified business coach. I'm here to help you up-level, generate consistent wealth, increase your confidence, attract dream clients, and master your mindset so that you can fully own your power and achieve next-level results in your online business and beyond. Every week, a powerful conversation will take place with amazing guests, or I'll share from my experience to help inspire you to start and scale the business of your dreams while being powerfully you. The time has come to stop playing small, stop hiding, and stop waiting. Now is the perfect time for you to passionately pursue your heart's desire as the powerful leader you were born to be. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Female Leaders Podcast. I am here today with Sara. Hey.
Hey, Anna. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you on. So feel free to take us on this journey with you and share with us who you are, what you do, and why you're so passionate about what you do.
You got it. Absolutely. Well, up until the last 6 to 8 months, we'll say, I was your typical corporate good girl, climbing the ladder, doing everything I could to follow the rules and check off all the boxes. I climbed to the C-suite by the age of 35. But over the past 2 years, I started to feel a bit of a rumbling that something wasn't quite right. And it first began during the pandemic when I was working up to 20 hours a day between both my executive level job and an executive MBA program I was doing. And what had always been possible for me, as far as just being able to put the pedal to the metal anytime I needed to, it suddenly wasn't working anymore. Now, granted, 20 hours a day was not something that I always did, and it wasn't every single day, but it just became clear that I couldn't work like this anymore. And so I burned out really hard. I had a couple of episodes of throwing up blood, and that wasn't enough to get me to slow down. So ultimately, in April 2021, I had a bout of shingles. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office, and he tells me my diagnosis, and I am overjoyed. I'm thrilled because I get 10 straight days off of work for a socially acceptable reason, and no one can say anything about it. And I just had this moment of like, oh my gosh, Sara, I have so much compassion when I look back on that version of me. And I'm so proud that I had the self-awareness at the time to be like, okay, this is not a normal response to an illness that could potentially lead to paralysis and blindness. Like, this isn't a normal sort of a thing. So I hit the life reset button. I found a new job in Florida. I moved. I started focusing so much more on my own well-being. I got into kind of some holistic healing modalities after going to Peru in between the two jobs and doing a wellness retreat. So I flipped everything on its head. But I get down to Florida and my burnout isn't really healing, and I can't figure out why. It's like I'm working fewer hours. I'm logging off at night. What is going wrong? And ultimately, I realized that I was dealing with a sexual harassment issue that wasn't being properly addressed. But in my mind, burnout was just overworking. Burnout wasn't that kind of situation. And I finally had the realization that walking into that organization every single day, wondering what was going to happen, just so anxious and struggling truly, it was like a paper cut on my nascently healing burnout. So
Mm.
ultimately, I ended up quitting that job. They did finally, months later, do a really just perfunctory investigation into the situation.
Mm.
And it was so just sort of check the box that I quit the next day. No 2 weeks notice. I wrote this blistering anti-harassment resignation letter, and I was done. But I
Mm.
was like, something had just broken open in me between these two sorts of things. And I wanted to figure out on the other side, what are other women experiencing? I cannot be the only one. Look at these millions of women also quitting their jobs as part of the Great Resignation. What are their stories, their defining moments, their
Mm.
breaking points? And so ultimately, I ended up founding Raise to Rise, which is a journalism project amplifying women's voices from the Great Resignation and capturing their stories. And it's led me to so many amazing things as far as a book and working on some career transition programming that'll be coming out later. So
Mm.
it's been a heck of a journey, as this
Yeah.
sort of description gives you a little insight into. But gosh, I sure wouldn't change it, because this is powerful stuff and powerful
Yeah.
work we're talking about here for every single female leader out there.
Wow. This is like, wow. I'm so happy that you're sharing your story. I'm so happy that you're bringing all these women together for them to share theirs. So I'm curious to know, like, what was the biggest, like, insight that you got from talking to all these other women?
This is my favorite thing to talk about, actually, because being that sort of corporate good girl, I
Mm.
totally bought into the school of thought that is our careers and the way we approach them should be logical, rational, pragmatic, all those
Mm.
things. Find
Yeah.
that stable job, climb the ladder, pull down fatter paychecks, and don't rock the boat along the way. Show up as that kind of good corporate performer. But every woman that I interviewed had this moment of knowing, just knowing that she had
Mm.
to leave her job. And that was the same thing for me too. And I was just so floored by this, because it wasn't like, some women did do some spreadsheets and pro con lists and things like that, but it wasn't
Mhm.
the mental gymnastics that got
Mm.
women to that tipping point where they ultimately said, I have to leave. We just knew. And
Mm.
so for me, it became, oh my gosh, our intuition, our gut instinct, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, that is such a critical part of how we should be navigating our careers. But one, we've not been taught that. It goes against
Mm.
good conventional wisdom related
Yeah.
to how we're supposed to make decisions. And if we think about intuition, it is not really given a place in the workplace,
Mm.
because it's kind of dismissed as too soft. It's not backed by data or numbers. It could be considered even a little bit on the woo side of things. And I think we've done intuition a huge disservice by just dismissing it.
Mm.
And when women across the board, this is the one red thread that I could find across every single one of the interviews, aside from every woman, awakening to an idea that there was more for them out there. They wanted to reprioritize what they were focusing on in their lives. This was
Mm.
the connective tissue of all of the interviews. And it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to figure out how to harness the power of this inner knowing that's so strong in us as women, and learn how to bring it to bear in our careers, even though that's counterintuitive to what we've always thought was the way we were supposed to operate.
Yes. I love this so much. I talk a lot about it and you're so right. And I'm so like, wow, like it's true. We have that. We have that inner knowing, that power, and like, let's utilize it and let's
Yes.
maximize it. So I'm curious to know, like, did you find that most of these women like had a career change, or like did they start their business? Like, what did they do after they resigned?
That has been the really cool thing about this project is that you'll often hear the stories of women who quit their jobs to become entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
I spoke with a number of women who did just that. They quit, they started their own businesses, and they're
Mhm.
moving in a completely different direction from
Yeah.
what they were doing before. Now, I guess it could be, though, that they're doing the same type of work. They're just not corporate, but some of them really did move in that direction of I'm going to blaze my own trail. But we also found through lots of these interviews too that there were women who were just switching jobs from one corporate
Mm.
organization to another. But that's just as powerful too. And I think that's what is important to bring into the conversation here is that a lot of women, when you talk about quitting your job, people just assume that you're saying, quit your job and become an entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
that's okay if that's not your path. That turns off a lot of people because it's like,
Yeah.
there's privilege to be said in that for people who can take time away and have additional funds to be able to invest in that. And that's not what this movement is about, nor is it about having even, that some people don't have that courage or desire related to becoming an entrepreneur and feel more
Mhm.
comfortable working at a corporate role. And that is more than okay. This, to me,
Yeah.
this movement is getting in touch with that deeper, wiser part of you. Tara Moore, who wrote a book back in 2014 called Playing Big, and it's all
Mm.
about how women can tap into the wisdom of their inner mentor. She says, like, there's this deeper, wiser part of us. And I think that's what this is about. This is connecting with that part of you to figure out what is the best path for you, and
Mm.
fulfillment and success and all of those things will look differently for every single woman out there. And that is amazing, whatever that is. It is not
Mm.
about having to take this huge leap and start something
Yeah.
big of your own. It's just about you finding the right fit for you. And I love too, as part of this conversation, this could mean for some women, it could be taking a break from the workforce entirely to spend time with their kids. It could be downshifting from a higher level role and then at some point deciding to move more into climbing back up the corporate ladder. I love the metaphor of a career jungle gym here. And Sheryl
Mm.
Sandberg first brought that to bear in her book, Lean In. And I think it's really true. It just becomes our careers should be a reflection of who we are at our most authentic core rather than what anybody else wants from us or thinks we should do or what we're watching all these people do, quitting their jobs and creating six-figure businesses. It's not about that.
Yes. Oh, this is so good.
I know, I'm so passionate about it because it's just
Yeah.
like there are so many women out there who can oftentimes feel stuck and feel like I don't really feel the calling to become an entrepreneur, or maybe I have too much fear in that space, and that's more than okay. And I just want women out there to know that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say a woman come to you and says, like, I'm ready to make a bold move. I'm ready for change. I'm ready to pivot. Like, what would you tell them they should do first?
Ooh, that is a wonderful question. Well, in the same vein of what we were talking about before, I deeply believe that what we've been taught as far as picking a career when we're in our late teens, early 20s, before the prefrontal cortex of our brain is even fully developed, and that is the part of our brain that is important to executive function and behavior and is really the kind of the core essence of who we are, that isn't even fully developed until we're 25 years old.
Mm,
So it's mind boggling to me that we are
yeah.
telling people that you should pick your career and know exactly what path it's going to be and you're going to commit to it for the next 30 to 40 years before your brain is even fully developed. And then you take that a step further, and we're encouraged to have dreams when we're younger, but as soon as that gets past a certain age, it's not cute anymore to be like, I'm going to be a singer, marine biologist, rocket scientist that a precocious 6-year-old may say she wants to do. But then at some point, we're told to kind of tamp down our dreams, make them more realistic, and ensure that there's enough stability and security, and the paychecks are going to be good enough in that realm, whatever it is. And so I just think like we cut ourselves off from our intuition at a young age because of what we've been taught. So my focus in my work going forward, and the book that I'm working on, is about helping women return to the kind of most whole version of them, the one before the workplace, society, or well-meaning parents and other adults and friends and loved ones, before any of them started putting their opinions out there. And all of a sudden, that noise, that cacophony, we can't hear ourselves anymore, and we can't hear our inner wisdom anymore. And so it's about doing the work to excavate the stories, the limiting beliefs we have around what we can and should do, to get back to the core of who we are, and then making really intentional, conscious choices related to our careers from there. Because we see that as part of the Great Resignation, depending on the survey that you might come across, anywhere from 20% to 70% of Great Resignationers are regretting the move that they made. Now, I don't believe that it's necessarily to say that, everybody was wrong in quitting or anything like that. It's just that I don't think people know that there is this deeper work to be done to architect an intentional approach to our careers. And so that's what I would say is like, this is not about knee-jerk moves. And granted, I was the one who kind of did one with my last resignation, obviously. But on the whole, it's not about knee-jerk moves. It's about coming home to you and designing a career that's right for you moving forward in as slow of a way as you need to do it, however it needs to happen and look for you.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I always say that. I always say like I love to help women come back home to themselves and truly get to know themselves and what they're passionate about, and following that intuition again. And yeah, I love that so much. And so I ask this to everyone who comes on the show, and I'm curious to know your answer. What does it mean for you to be a powerful leader?
I think being a powerful leader is about knowing who you are and leading from a place of vulnerability. Now, I say that too because shortly after I left my last job, I did Brene Brown's Dare to Lead program. And it is all about flipping the script on the current ways of approaching leadership in corporate, which is much more of this armored leadership where I'm coming in and I'm protecting myself and my vulnerabilities and my weaknesses daily, versus on the flip side, daring leadership, which takes courage. And as you double click on that, what she found through her interviews with thousands of business leaders is that vulnerability is really at the heart of courageous leadership. And so that is about being able to show up every day and say things like, I don't know the answer, but we're going to figure it out together, leading from a place of curiosity rather than judging what somebody else is trying to do, and being better communicators. So I think that's part of it. And then I probably no surprise that the other side of this to me is also using your voice when others can't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, vulnerability is so big. Like I always say that. I always say like go out there and share your story. Like you don't know who you might inspire, and
Yes.
it all starts from there, you know. So I love it.
Absolutely. It's so true. I mean, this whole sort of paradigm of like you're one person at work and you're one person at home, it was obliterated during the pandemic as we all are showing up from our homes for work, at least for the remote workers. And, things just changed. We became more caring about what our coworkers and their families were going through and things like that. And I think that's a real boon, a real advance for workers, coming out of the pandemic. And so we see that we are we're more productive, more engaged, we're happier when we're able to be ourselves, be vulnerable. And we see that others are meeting us there too, because that's a critical piece of it. You can't be vulnerable if other people around you are armoring up. So the more that we can all show up and make courageous decisions and bring daring leadership to bear by being vulnerable, the better off we're all going to be.
Yes. Amen.
Love it.
Amazing. So I know people would want to like connect with you, follow you, learn more about your projects. So let us know where they can go online to find you.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that. There is nothing that I enjoy more than speaking to women about this and hearing their stories, whether you've left a job or you haven't, because I've had an equal number of women reaching out who are feeling stuck but haven't resigned yet. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm Sara J, as in Jean McElroy, on there. And then my project Raise to Rise is raisetorise.com, and that's RAZETORISE.com, and would love to speak with anyone there and support you in whatever way that I can.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much, Sara, for being here. You're awesome. Keep doing your work. It's so needed in today's world.
Thank you. Thank you. And same to you. I cannot wait to see the work that you continue to do as well, and to be connected with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Powerful Female Leaders podcast. If you love this episode, make sure to spread the message, leave a review, and subscribe. I would forever be grateful for you. I also want to hear from you, and I want to know your feedback and your questions for future episodes. So don't be shy, say hi, and send me a message at Powerful Female Leaders Podcast on Instagram. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode.